Are you going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megan. Wait till you see this lawsuit. It's all going to be based on evidence. It's not going to be just a lawsuit. It's going to be the kind of lawsuit that is full of evidence, admissions, documents, which prove exactly what Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's all through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. He wanted to protect the film. He wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to protect her from making negative allegations about him that were made up and that they're proven in this case.
On live television, Blake Lively was completely taken by surprise when Bryan Freedman made a comment that not only shocked her but also left her in a state of stunned silence. It wasn't the kind of moment where her usual poise and wit could immediately diffuse the situation. Rather, the unexpected comment turned the atmosphere into something akin to a surreal pause in an otherwise typical day.
New York Times, her publicists worked directly with the New York Times. They shared illegally obtained text messages. They shared those together. They concocted a complaint that they filed with the Civil Rights Division. They omitted texts that would have provided context, texts that were in the exact same string that would have provided context of what was really going on. And in fact, they actually removed emojis from texts that show that there was satire and there was joking around by the PR crisis agents. I mean, the PR crisis.
As the cameras rolled and a live audience took in every moment, it became evident that even the polished Blake Lively wasn't immune to the unpredictable twists of on-air banter. In a world where every remark is scrutinized and every reaction is dissected, observers noticed that her usual sparkle seemed to falter and be replaced by a look that mixed disbelief with a hint of ironic amusement. Who knew that one comment could leave a Hollywood icon momentarily, if only dramatically, speechless?
An excerpt from my new favorite book, which is the website that Justin Baldoni published, all about his correspondence with Blake Lively. And this is one of my favorite excerpts with my new favorite Game of Thrones character, Blake Lively. Are you ready for it? And him serving it back to her is just as important. You don't usually see both the man and the woman with such agency and humor. Anyway, I can act it out for you next week to make sure it comes through. Or I can send it now. Let me know what you prefer. XX. To which Justin Baldoni responded, "Sorry, I was just crying my eyes out as kids and family just left for another 5 weeks and it was a shit show. Heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji."
Bryan Freedman, who is known for his casual remarks and propensity to stir things up, decided that this particular evening was his chance to shine with a comment that was as bold as it was unfiltered in a scene that could only be described as a collision of spontaneity and celebrity. The scene was set for what was supposed to be a routine live broadcast. There was no time for pretense as Bryan's words cut through the background chatter of the studio like a hot knife through butter. With his trademark nonchalant, he leaned into the microphone with a smile that suggested he was about to drop a truth bomb. He spoke about a subject that was a little too personal for Blake, one that many had discussed behind closed doors but had never been so boldly thrust into the glaring spotlight of live television.
And Justin Baldoni's attorney has just shot back at Blake Lively's motion to dismiss. Blake is abusing the legal system. 3 exclamation points. Bryan Freedman tells TMZ Ms. Lively's recent motion to dismiss herself from the self-concocted disaster.
The remark itself was a surprising development in a discussion that had up until that point remained ostentatiously friendly banter. As the words echoed through the studio, the camera found Blake Lively. Her reaction was instantaneous and unmistakable. An expression that seemed to say, "Really, you can't be serious." Bryan casually mentioned something that on paper might have sounded trivial, but his tone was so devilishly smug and delightfully irreverent that it turned into a statement loaded with implications in that split second. Her eyes widened just enough to show that she wasn't just taking in the information. Rather, she was actively resisting the urge to respond with a scathing retort. For a brief moment, the glamorous exterior of Hollywood was removed to reveal a genuine and human reaction that even the most seasoned celebrity could scarcely have predicted.
Lead her way through the process to take over the movie and used her PR people to try and destroy Justin. There's a number of different defendants here. Stephanie Jones will be all over this complaint. That is the PR agent who was supposed to be working for Justin Baldoni. Leslie Sloan, who's another PR agent who will be part of this lawsuit. That was Blake Lively's. Blake Lively will be sued, and we're carefully considering other people that will be sued also. Ryan Reynolds, for sure.
The atmosphere of the studio quickly changed from casual conversation to a charged, almost electric tension as the audience, which included both industry insiders and ardent fans, sat on the edge of their seats, wondering what the fallout of this unscripted moment might be. Some spectators smirked at the irony of the situation, as it's not often that a Hollywood darling like Blake Lively is rendered momentarily silent by an offhand remark. Others, however, watched with bated breath, fully aware that this was the kind of moment that would be dissected by tabloids, social media, and late-night comedians for weeks to come.
Justin Baldoni's attorney has just shot back at Blake Lively's motion to dismiss. Blake is abusing the legal system. 3 exclamation points. Bryan Freedman tells TMZ Ms. Lively's recent motion to dismiss herself from the self-concocted disaster she initiated is one of the most abhorrent examples of abusing our legal system. Freedman says stringent rules are put into place to protect the innocent and allow individuals to rightfully defend themselves, while noting laws are not meant to be twisted and curated by privileged elites to fit their own personal agenda. In his statement to TMZ, Freedman reiterated, as we said yesterday in response to Mr. Reynolds' same cowardly measures, we will continue to hold Ms. Lively accountable for her actions of pure malice, which include falsely accusing my clients of harassment and retaliation. Freedman summed it up by saying Blake's fantastical claims will be swiftly debunked as discovery moves forward, easily disproved with actual evidentiary proof.
Aware that they were watching a historic moment in live television history, the production staff frantically worked behind the scenes to keep things somewhat organized. Directors exchanged knowing looks, while producers quickly murmured directions into our pieces. Blake's initial look of surprise was soon covered by a fake smile that said, "I see what you did there and I'm not wholly amused," but it didn't quite reach her eyes. If one could have overheard her inner monologue, it would have been a series of witty onliners and sardonic retorts intended to divert the awkward attention that had suddenly been focused on her. However, the art of the retort was lost in translation at that precise moment and was replaced by a silence that spoke volumes.
Bad guy. And just to lay it out for the audience in a little bit more detail, what she's claiming is that even though she was a much bigger star than Justin Baldoni, who I never heard of before this lawsuit, she's the much bigger star, and she's married to an even bigger star than she is, Ryan Reynolds, that she came in and onto this project and started to get harassed and mistreated by Justin and some others. And that when she then demanded that all of her concerns be rectified, that he did it, but that he was basically lying in wait for when the film would get released in case she went public with what happened, that he and his PR team determined to bury her, to ruin her, and that this wave of bad press we did see about Blake Lively when the film came out this past summer was not organic. It was totally orchestrated by Justin and his team, and they've gotten their hands on a bunch of texts.
The conversation continued as though the incident had been a minor hiccup in an otherwise seamless exchange. Bryan Ever, the provocator, continued to add remarks to the conversation, each one more pointed than the last. His tone remained light and conversational, as though he were simply joking with an old friend, but underneath that was a clear intention to upset the carefully crafted public image of one of Hollywood's most adored figures. Blake's comments, when they did come, were cool and collected, showing no signs of the internal conflict the insult had caused. Instead, she gave the kind of polished, nearly prepared retorts that celebrities are compelled to give in front of the harsh scrutiny of live television.
The bad guy. And just to lay it out for the audience in a little bit more detail, what she's claiming is that even though she was a much bigger star than Justin Baldoni, who I never heard of before this lawsuit, she's the much bigger star, and she's married to an even bigger star than she is, Ryan Reynolds, that she came in and onto this project and started to get harassed and mistreated by Justin and some others. And that when she then demanded that all of her concerns be rectified, that he did it, but that he was basically lying in wait for when the film would get released in case she went public with what happened, that he and his PR team determined to bury her, to ruin her, and that this wave of bad press we did see about Blake Lively when the film came out this past summer was not organic. It was totally orchestrated by Justin and his team, and they've gotten their hands on a bunch of texts.
The story took on a life of its own as the segment went on. Observers noticed that every time Bryan's words reverberated through the studio, there was a slight change in the energy, a pause in laughter, and a moment of collective realization that they were witnessing something truly unique. It wasn't just the content of the remark that had everyone talking, but also the way it was delivered. In a medium where every word is scrutinized and every expression is magnified, even the smallest mistake can become a moment of historical significance, and on this particular instance, that mistake was none other than Bryan Freedman's brash remark, which briefly disarmed Blake.
Right. I can send you my pass at the roof, or just read with you when we get together next week. Let me know what you prefer, smiley face. If you knew me in person longer, you'd have a sense of just how flirty and yummy the ball busting would play. It's my love language, spicy and playfully bold, never with tea.
The show continued with its carefully scheduled segments despite the underlying tension. The host, a consumer specialist, tried his best to deflect the subject from the tragedy by bringing in humor and lighthearted commentary, but the harm had already been done. Social media exploded in real time as fans and critics alike offered their own sardonic interpretations of the incident. Tweets and posts flooded in, each one dissecting the event with a mixture of amusement, outrage, and incredulity. Within minutes, memes were created, immortalizing the moment when a single comment turned an ordinary broadcast into a spectacle of unintentional brilliance. The studio audience was now buzzing with whispers and speculative glances.
Because he treated me well and did nothing wrong, and I allowed him to sit in the basement with his family because I was starstruck by Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, that Blake Lively was the aggressor in this now epic showdown. Was it right after was it when Baldoni dropped the countersuit? Was it when Bryan Freedman put up the website with the 170 pages and all the texts? Or was it right away when the Times wrote?
Right away. I've always had an intuition about her, and I've always had an intuition about Taylor Swift and like the branding of the nice girl stuff. And something just didn't, I went through Justin Baldoni's Instagram and he just seemed like a puppy. And it just didn't add up to me that this guy was secretly just dying to talk about pornography all the time and talk about his porn addiction and wanted her to look at pornography. I'm going, this is not the Instagram feed I'm looking through. And I went back.
The incident became the subject of countless talk shows and debate in the days that followed. Online forums and podcasts were quite interested in the contrast between Blake's sudden silence and Bryan's bold remarks. In a field where every word is carefully chosen, experts argued about whether the remark was a deliberate maneuver or just an inadvertent slip of the tongue. Some contended that Bryan's comment was a purposeful provocation meant to pierce the glossy exterior of celebrity culture and reveal the weaknesses that lie beneath people. Argued that regardless of the interpretation, it was just a case of misunderstandings exaggerated by a scandal-hungry audience. There was no denying that the incident had permanently altered the live television scene.
It was monstrous what she did, and she's got to pay for it.
Industry insiders conjectured about the possible consequences as the weeks went by. Some said that the incident might make publicists reconsider how they prepare their clients for live interviews by stressing the importance of quick comebacks and unflappable poise. Others thought it might inspire a new wave of on-air spontaneity, with hosts and guests alike feeling emboldened to deviate from the script. Meanwhile, late-night hosts revealed in the material that the incident was woven into monologues with a delicious blend of sarcasm and schadenfreude. It seemed that every reference to the event only served to enchant those who enjoyed the delicious irony of live television accidents.
There's a few secrets in the closet, too, that they don't want people to be taking a look at, and it's going to destroy these people. That's why they wanted this attorney's eyes-only privilege. And basically, we can say anything. The public can't see it, just the attorneys. It was kind of a radical thing to want, and they were arguing that, careers could be ruined. Well, what could be ruined? You might be a little embarrassed, but to ruin a career, there has to be some level of fraud. in terms of how you're presenting yourself to the public and who you are in private. And so that kind of a desperate sort of a pleading, which was to do something that was abnormal and file for this attorney eyes only, which they didn't give them. He kind of half waited and said like, yeah, according to like medical records, which is self-explanatory. But, that lets me know that they're scared and they're not going to admit that until they lose the dismissals. And then I think they're going to want to settle.
The episode turned into a case study on the fine line that separates decorum from candor. The moment captured the inherent unpredictability of live television and served as a reminder that beneath every polished facade lies the potential for unscripted brilliance, or at the very least a healthy dose of unexpected irony. There was no grand resolution that evening, just a series of glances, muted chuckles, and the undeniable understanding that sometimes the best moments on live TV are the ones that no one saw coming. In retrospect, the incident has come to be celebrated as much for its humor as for its audacity. Bryan Freedman's remark, delivered with a smirk and a wink, managed to disrupt not only the conversation, but also the carefully constructed image of one of Hollywood's brightest stars.